Ladies and gentlemen, Throwback Curtis Robertson here for episode 3 of the Curtis Robertson Show. Today we're going to talk about some first year stories. Glad to be here with you on this beautiful Thursday. Um, yeah, first year stories. First year stories is what's on the menu today. We're going to talk about things that happened in the first year. First episode of the show, we talked about how things got started, so you can go check that one out if you haven't yet. It's on YouTube. It's on Spotify. It's in this playlist that you're currently in right now. If you're on YouTube, and we're moving right along. First episode maybe 8 or 9 people. Last one had 21, 22. So keep it out. Keep it going out there. Share it with your friends. Share it with your enemies. Share it with everybody. And then subscribe for notifications, like it. Do all the stuff that you're supposed to do. I don't know what it is. I'm just talking to you guys here. But before we get into that, I wanted to cover some current events. So a couple of weeks ago, there was a show. I didn't go to the show. I think the last time I was on here, I had to advertise a bunch of dates, and there was a note saying I wasn't going to those dates. So I didn't go to the show. A bunch of people went to the show, and a bunch of folks got sick, and that's going to happen sometimes. It's wintertime. It's flu season. You had a room with 200, 250 people in it. Stuff's going to happen. So a lot of folks were complaining about that. Some of the wrestlers were complaining, and they were saying, how can you come to a show sick?" And they were kind of directing this at the other wrestlers. But you don't know. You don't know if it was the wrestlers that got you, or fan, or anybody else, and you don't know if the person that was the catalyst of that event there was, maybe they were feeling fine, didn't know they were sick when they went there. So it was just weird to see a lot of people complaining about it. So I did something. I made it funny. I thought, um, bring this up here. So it's a great photo by Chad McDaniel Photography, um, and it's this photo of Max Carnage here. He's giving the miss to Lil Donnie, and this is a great photo because Carnage is spitting the mist right into Donnie's open mouth. So, um, if you've seen mist in wrestling before, it's supposed to. I mean, depends on where you're at. Here in the states, it's usually just supposed to blind you, and it's supposed to hurt. It's like a poison mist. Overseas, in Japan, they kind of treat it like an RPG where there's different status effects. So my gaming fans out there, or my card players, tabletop folks, they'll know. Well, one miss makes you sleepy, and one makes you silly, and one blinds you, and one knocks you out. So all different kinds. But neither here nor there with that. But the thing that was funny to me is that you usually want to try to get this up around the forehead, um, in the eyes, so the guy will close his eyes, and you can spray him up here, and I can't see, or whatever. Instead, what we got here is right in the mouth, wide open mouth. And usually you'd close everything up. So it was just a funny picture. I put it up there, and then a disclaimer time, like, oh, I got messages. Hey, people are gonna think I got everybody sick now. That's not what I was saying at all. It was just you know a funny um, photograph, so I put it up there. Um, but yeah, that's Matt Carnage and Little Donnie. So first year stories. We'll start with training. Um, so wrestling training is kind of like a video game, right? Um, the first thing there'll be like a tutorial, section, where they're just gonna show you how to move. All right, this is how you move. This is how you pick stuff up. This is how you get in the ring. This is how you get out of the ring. All those things that you'd want to know in a video game. This is how you jump. This is how you attack. They'll show that to you. So the way the school I started off with work was that they'd make you watch a training first to make sure that you wanted to do it still before you plunk your money down. So I'm watching the first week, and even as you're watching it, you're seeing folks get knocked down, and and it doesn't look pleasant. That looks like that'll hurt. Um, but the make it look so effortless that as you're watching it, you go, okay, well, I can definitely do that. And then I got started, and I definitely, could not do that right away. So school I went to, George South, known around the South here, was the head trainer, and would he's kind of like some kind of it's weird for me because he would have 10, 15, 20 students at a time, all at different places in their training, different skill levels, and he would be able to remember where everybody's at, and he didn't have a scrap of paper or anything written down, but it's just a strong memory of, well, this person's only up to this point, and that person's there, and he doesn't know how to get in the ring yet, and she's ahead of all of them, and he's got it all in his head, and he can pull together a class, and it's it's like watching, you know, um, symphony. Um, conductor. He's got everybody moving along. Well, anyway, so the first 2 or 3 weeks, I didn't learn how to fall down. For the folks that aren't, wrestling fans listening to this, we call that taking a bump. That's nothing new. I'm not exposed to anything that's not been out there a bunch. So, the idea behind it, and you'll learn this in other martial arts too, is if you're going to the ground anyway, how can I do this in a way where I can get back up, mitigate the damage to myself? Um, so you learn how to do that, but I didn't get to learn how to do that for the first 3 or 4 weeks because I was so clumsy and coordinated and out of shape that just learning how to navigate the ring was all that I could handle at that time. And we got past that pretty quickly, but you had to you wouldn't let you take on more than you could handle. So after a while, after a month or two of that, I'm doing some basic stuff now, and some of the other trainees are encouraged me to go the other days. So training was Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. Tuesday was George. That was beginner stuff. Wednesday was the intermediate day, and that most of the time would be uh, run by Caprice Coleman. And then Thursday was it James Drake Day, JD Drake Day, or sometimes Caleb Conley. And the classes all had different focuses for different aspects of what we're doing. So I'm getting along pretty good. So I think in these beginner classes now, um, where you're learning holds, and basically you're learning holds and throws one at a time. It's kind of like learning your alphabet. So the Wednesday class, which I don't know this at the time, different focus than the beginner class here. You need all the stuff from the beginner class, and there's going to be a layer of conditioning now. So, and I was given a little bit of a heads up about that, but not too much. So I come to that, and I've been doing this for a few weeks now, and I'm feeling better. I'm going to the gym some for a little bit of time, maybe getting elliptical, stuff like that. The way that the conditioning worked in that beginners class was that once you were able to, even if you couldn't do anything else, you would take a bunch of bumps. So you just throwing yourself on the ground and getting back up. And what you quickly learn that I didn't consider, but maybe obvious to you, is that the getting back up part is a real workout. Just picking your whole body off the ground again and again, even if you do it with good technique and cheat it. If you do that a couple hundred times, you'll notice when when training's over. So we get to the first Wednesday class, and Caprice is there. He's the instructor, and he goes, "Okay, we're gonna take it easy today on the conditioning. We're just gonna do 100 burpees." And to my mind, I'm like, well, that doesn't sound easy. And then he further explains, like, well, it's not really as bad as it sounds because you're only going to do 50. We're going to count off, 1, 2, 1, 2, and then as the odd numbers are completing their set, the even numbers will be starting and vice versa. So it's only 50, not 100. Well, 50 wasn't that great either. Um, got through that class somehow, uh, and I was not in good shape afterwards at all. I thought, but then I got home and took a shower. Now I'm feeling good, a little bit sore, but otherwise, I had made it through that. I'll go back again next time, and that'll be cool. I'll keep doing it. So we get to the end of the night, and Mrs. Throwback is, you know, wanting some attention, and I'm like, okay, well that's cool. I'm a pro athlete now. I get it. She's seeing me in a new light. That's amazing. So we go to have some we go to have some adult time, and I get a cramp in my torso almost immediately. This whole upper body just seized up, and that was kind of embarrassing there, and she took pity on me, and I've been embarrassed ever since. But stuff happens. But just everything, full body cramps. You know, nothing got accomplished that night. Nothing was thrown back on the throwback. Just a lot of pain and embarrassment. Anyway, so moving right along, then and eventually I started going to the Thursday classes, and those were more advanced than I probably should have been going to at that point. It's good to get the practice in, but I didn't. I probably was not benefiting from as much as I should have because I wouldn't even have matches or anything like that. And the folks that were doing that sort of thing at the time would benefit more. And after a while, I would go 2 days a week. I try to find 2 days to go. Maybe I go Tuesday, Wednesday, Tuesday, Thursday. Sometimes if I was feeling really daring, Wednesday, Thursday. Wouldn't do all three because still trying to find a balance yet. At this time, this is still pretty new. We've got a brand new family, and not brand new family, established family, brand new disruption to it, and Kayla's still getting used to it. We're trying to find the balance and all of that, which we found out. That's great, but I wasn't wanting to go too much and be out of the house too often, so I'm doing that, and I'm just going all the time, and and then she's stuck and she doesn't get to socialize or anything. That's not very fair. So we were trying to find that balance. We struck it later on. So anyway, um, training's going along. It's been a few months now. I can move a little bit. Um, Basically, wrestling myself into better shape. And there's a show at the Rohan County Fair coming up, and they need trainees to work the fair because the guy that's promoting this year doesn't want to pay anybody, and that's a way to go about it. You know, the fans would have a better time if the Throwback's first match wasn't at the Rowan County Fair and it was somewhere else for sure. But that would be more out of pocket for the promoter. So, um, you know, the we the funny part about this story is the promoter's not reaching out to us. He's got one of the students in the class trying to get other students to come, and he's just kind of disrupting class to keep talking about this. Hey, who's coming? Can we get anybody? I want to give names and stuff like that. And finally, George just gets upset and says, "Well, not now. I'm trying to run a class," and he yells, and that was fun in a very George way of of yelling, "Oh my God, goof!" Like that. He's just screaming at you. If you know George, that's a great impression. So uh, Steve Allen, Robert Allen, shout out to the Allen brothers, reigning, reigning two-time Carolina's Tag Team of the Year. That's impressive. So we're going to go down to this show, and we're all going to have our first matches or that weekend because we're going to work the fair for 3 days. I think Thursday, Friday, Saturday. We went to the fair, and I had no business having a match yet. I asked permission first, and George told me to go ahead. But I mean, I guess you got to learn by doing at some point, but not great. So my first match is against a guy named JC Youngblood. He's the promoter's son, and he's also new. And they told me to lead the match. So for folks that aren't involved in wrestling, don't know as much about it, is that sometimes things um, are very carefully thought about, and sometimes they're improvised. And this was a situation where they wanted me to lead the improvisation, um, but it's my first night. Wasn't great. Looking back on that footage, I'm moving in slow motion, and it didn't make a lot of sense. But we got through it. And then the second night I wrestled Steve, and the third night I wrestled Rob, or vice versa. But we got some matches under our belt. And the thing that I remember most about it is that the ring is set up underneath a street lamp at the fairgrounds. So you had light, and you didn't have to bring in any lighting because you're just using your environment to the best of your advantage. And it's a little crooked, so like the ground was uneven. So the if you're running this way, you're running uphill, and if you're running that way, the opposite way, then you're running downhill. It's a little wobble sided. That's fine. And the ring was right in front of a petting zoo, and every night the petting zoo had way more attendance than the wrestling did. Wasn't even close. He got buried by the billy goats every single time. And then sometimes the goats would heckle us during the matches. They're watching the matches, and then they would bleat at us. Yeah, and I'm like, what? You already have a bigger crowd. You don't have to like rub it in. So that's what I remember most about that. And fast forward a few years later, they're having a lot of success. Al Brothers, that's good, and I'm having a little bit of success too, and we're all having fun, having a good time. Um, so that was a thing, and then I started to try to find other places to work. Um, this is all for free at this point still, which is fine because I'm new and I don't know what I'm doing, and that sort of thing. So this place down in Orangeburg, at the time, it was called the Alternative Wrestling Showcase, and they would let you have matches there too. That's about 2.5 hour drive for me. So I drive. And these were Saturdays. Sometimes they were Sundays. I think these were. I liked them better when they were Saturdays, but it was an all day thing. So it would take about 2.5 hours to get there. They want to start around noon. So 9, 10 o'clock in the morning, I'd drive, and then we'd have um, tapings for a show that I think was aired on YouTube, sometimes with commentary, sometimes without. And this was an interesting setup. I've seen a whole bunch of different setups over here, so I'll describe this one to you. So we had like a warehouse, like a tin warehouse, um, that's emptied out with a ring inside. Now I've seen that set up a lot of times. I've seen that set up with really good camera equipment and sound equipment and lighting, um, to where we careful camera angles, you can't really tell what the space looks like in real life. So I've seen that set up before, and I've seen that set up here too. We had a couple of rows of chairs, and we had a camera, but the way that we did the camera is that, have you ever seen like I'm sure you have, a 720p uh, laptop camera that you, or computer camera that you put on top of your computer before they started coming with the laptop, so you could do like Zoom or back in the day, I guess if you're using Yahoo or Excite or AOL or something like that, you can have like a video camera. 720p would have been the fancy one at that time, or maybe sometimes a 480. A camera like that, Logitech, right? It's one of those suspended at the uh, top of the where the ceiling meets the wall. It's suspended there with a wire fish through, and that wire runs all the way through the building to a room in an adjoining building. Call it 75 or 100 feet. Just a long ether HDMI cable into a laptop, and then you would turn on like the FaceTime camera and do a screen recording, and that's the video that we were using at the time. Um, Going back to episode 2, don't be delusional. If that's with cell phones existing in 2021, like whatever iPhone was out then, 13 or 14 or whatever, even if you had like a 10 or an X or iPhone, it had a strong camera on it that you could mount somewhere and record the footage and upload. Get connected to your computer and then move the picture files over when it's done. And it would look better. And you can get a better angle, or you could use two of them and put the footage together if you were trying to do a thing. But whatever. So we had a bunch of matches out there. Not most of them not great, but still learning a lot of stuff. One time I remember in the Allens again. So we had a storyline where they cheated to win a match against some guy, and his grandmother would come to all the shows, and she would hold the flag for the national anthem and set the chairs out beforehand, and then she would just scream and knock all the wrestlers. The typical old lady wrestling fan. That's the kind of thing that you like. But when her grandson got cheated, she tried to fight the wrestlers, and she was spitting and snarling and throwing stuff and hitting people. And what I wonder is, she has to know, because she's bringing her grandkids to the show, that yeah, they cheated, but it's going to be okay. But she was really into it. That was fun times too. Fast forward to the end of the first year, maybe beginning of the second year, um, at a show, and this will be the last story for today. I'm at a show with those same folks from the fair. They're having a show inside this time. We've got people there. This is great. And I think this is actually a paid gig for me. So the things have really progressed at the end of the first year. We've gone from outside to inside. That's amazing. We've gone from not paid to paid. That's fantastic. You know, we've gone from, Logitech camera in the ceiling with a 100-foot wire to a old laptop to a little bit better production. So we're moving along as you should. We're progressing as you should. And so I'm gonna have a match. I have a triple threat match. It's my first triple threat match, and I'm not even good at singles matches yet. So I don't know why we're adding more people to this. That can apply for a lot of things in life. Um, I'm not good with just the one person. Why we add one more? So we're having the match, and the idea for the match is supposed to be, when we're getting to the end of it, um, the one guy does something to me, he gives me like a bulldog. I'm down. Um, he goes to cover me, and the other opponent is Miss Thunderbolt in this case is supposed to come drop an elbow. he's going to dodge the elbow. I'll take the elbow. They'll fight something, and I'll get the finish somehow. But it was supposed to be a failed pin breakup. So we're wrestling, and whatever happens, I'm in the corner. I take the bulldog, and Mr. Thunderbolt's outside the ring still, and I see him, and the cover happens, and I see that he's not going to make it back to break this pin up. So now I've got to kick out, right? I've got good wrestling instincts now. I've had like 10 or 15 matches. I know what's going on. Like, all right, I better kick out because the guy's not going to break the pin up, and this guy's not going to get off of me. So the referee should count to 3, and I'll lose, and that's not what's supposed to happen in this case. So I kick out, and I roll my whole side and expose all this like that. But the spot was elbow drop, so he still dropped the elbow, even though it was unnecessary. And instead of dropping it across my back, it was just all exposed ribs. Broke my ribs. Didn't know it at the time. And so I think my back hurts. My wife was at the show, so Kayla's at the show there. I got some family at that show. And she's watched me wrestle a couple of times now, and she's watching this, and she could tell that something was off because the scream was a little different. Anyway, to get to the back, my back is just hurting, and I'm thinking, all right, well, that'll subside in a little bit because I had another match that night, and I think the Allens were in that too. So we were supposed to have like a 6-person elimination match, and so I just found. I want to say I found Steve, and I say, just roll me up because my back really hurts. I can't do anything. But we get into the match out of order, and the other person doesn't know that I'm hurt, and just starts whooping my ass. And I hit the ropes, and all of that that starts hurting. It gives me a big senton, and then eventually the promoter was pin him. Just pin him already. So I finally get pinned, and I make it to the back with help because I've never broken anything before. I don't know it's broken yet. But it's in a good place because I really can't do anything. So I stay for teardown because that's what you're supposed to do. I think maybe I moved like one board or something like that. And I'm parked up a hill, so I've got my bag with me, and I really can't walk up this hill. One of the other wrestlers noticed, gave me a lift to my car, and once I sat down in the car, I could do the drive home. The drive home was like an hour and a half or 2 hours. But the problem was getting back out of the car and then getting up the stairs. So, long story short on that one, maybe a week, maybe a little bit less than a week. Like I kind of had to sleep in a chair because it was hard. I couldn't lay down and sit back up. And then that got better. I went to the doctor a couple of months later after all that healed up. I sneezed one time and I thought that I died. But I never figured out what it was. Eventually, I figured out it was ribs, not back. But I went to the doctor for some blood work for a couple like regular routine physical stuff. Checked my blood pressure and cholesterol and diabetes and all that. I'm getting old. And give me the results. I'm like, hey, you've got this elevated enzyme, and that means that either you're gonna die immediately, your body's in full rebellion, or you've had a broken bone recently. Like, oh, I think, yeah, I got hurt here, and that's how I figured it out. So that was a later diagnosis. Well, thanks for listening today. That's all the time that we have for the Curtis Robertson Show. We got some stories from the first year in. I will be in Spartanburg at EPW this Friday night, whatever it was, Friday the 30th, 31st, 29th. What is today? Today's the 30th. The 31st. We'll be there the 31st. February 8th, NAWA is coming up. February 7th, I'll be at Action Packed Wrestling in Chester, South Carolina. Looking forward to see you at all of those dates. And for now, peace